making vintage scooters like these two you see here. In this video we'll be looking at these two machines, both restored by myself. We hope that you will enjoy this video and that it will be of interest not only to scooter enthusiasts but also to people who enjoy seeing scooters of the 50s and 60s. Maico was started in 1926 by Ulrich Maich in Poltringen near Tübingen in Germany. At first they were called Maich & Company, but this was later shortened to Maico. Initially they manufactured bicycles and also spare parts for motorcycles. By 1933 the two brothers Wilhelm and Otto Maich started manufacturing motorcycles. Because they didn't have their own engines, first of all they used Sachs engines. Shortly before the Second World War they moved to new premises at Pfaffingen, which was also near to Tübingen. At the end of the Second World War, Maico found themselves in the French zone with an almost totally destroyed factory. In order to gain funds to rebuild, they sold toys and bicycle parts and also repaired French army vehicles. As you would expect, money was in very short supply. And because the French were not very forthcoming, they decided that because the American zone was only 11 kilometers away, that perhaps they'd be better off moving to the Americans and asking them for help. So it was that another factory was started at Herrenberg, and the Americans did help them with money and machinery, and they produced the first motorcycle there, the M125, in 1948. This motorcycle, the M125, was a great success, and after a period of time was followed by the M150 and the M175 motorcycles. 1951 saw the introduction of the first mobile that you see here. It received much criticism from the press, and very shortly they modified it and produced the Mark II version. This Mark II version had a redesigned front end and was also available with a 175 engine. The final version of the mobile is the one you see here, and is the one that you're probably all conversant with. The construction of this mobile is unique. The middle section of the scooter is steel, but the rear end and the front end are both made out of aluminium, and the majority of the parts are riveted together. The Maicomobil was advertised throughout Europe as the car on two wheels. This shows the front of the brochure of the English version. This picture is a very popular picture that you might have seen. However, it is not a photograph, it is actually an artist's impression and gives you a somewhat distorted view of the mobiles. 1955 saw the introduction of the most powerful scooter ever produced in those days, the Maicoletta. It was available in both 175 and 250cc. This was because in Germany you had a peculiarity in the market that necessitated having a 175cc for certain licenses. They did also produce a 277cc, allegedly for sidecar use and for use in alpine regions, where of course the higher you go, the more power you lose. This is another good picture of the Maicoletta. But along with the Maicoletta and the Mobile, Maico's also produced road machines and off-road machines like the Blizzard and the Typhoon, and by the end of the 50s had actually bought a car manufacturer called Champion and were producing small cars. The 50s were indeed the golden years for the firm. The downturn in two-wheeler sales throughout Europe took its toll, and despite orders from motorcycles for the German army, by 1970 Maico had ceased four-wheel production and were concentrating only on motocross machines. Maico works riders and private entrants won race after race, but by 1984 the company was in so much debt that it had to call in the liquidators. One of the accountants appointed, a Volker Grubb, noted on his first visit to the offices that the curtains were filthy, the carpet stank, and the offices were littered with old bottles and mugs, and even the boss's chair was broken. It was no doubt that Maicos were in serious trouble. It was the end of an era for a company that produced some very fine and successful machines, but sadly could not put its own house in order. During the 50s and 60s, Maicos took great part in publicity stunts that were carried out on their behalf. This first one shows the copy of the German scooter magazine from 1955. This young lady has just returned from a tour of the Balkans and Turkey. You can see from the battered state of her mobile that she had a pretty rough time of it. This picture shows an intrepid young Dutchman with his vastly overloaded mobile. He also undertook a 10,000 kilometre run to the Balkans, Turkey, and way beyond and back. The Maicoletta was also used in publicity. This particular shot was reported in Motorcycling, and it shows the machine and its rider after a run from London Marble Arch to Princess Street in Edinburgh in 9 hours. Another run undertaken by the Maicoletta in the 60s was a run to Hell. Yes, Hell, but Hell being a village in northern Norway within the Northern Circle. You can see from the picture that it's actually two machines here. The author and the rider of the first machine was very surprised to find that there was also an Englishman here on his machine. Another run undertaken by an Englishman on a Maicoletta was into the Northern Circle. In particular, Another run undertaken by an Englishman was to the Arctic Circle, to a place called Hell. Yes, he actually went to Hell and back, but Hell being a small village in northern Norway. The rider was most surprised to find on getting there that there was actually another Maicoletta owner there, another Englishman, which you see in the back. concept of the car on two wheels was first introduced to the German public in 1951. This, however, is the last version ever produced. It is one of 300 that Maico's especially made in 1958 for export to England. The model is the MB200. Distinctive feature is the headlight. Car type but 6-volt headlight. You can also see the indicators and the strips, the aluminium strips on the front end, which are just for decoration. The flowing lines of the mobile are perhaps better seen from this angle. The hatch, and there is one on the other side as well, is for access to the engine for minor jobs like cleaning the carburetor, getting at the spark plug, etc. The boot is at the back end, fastened by two clasps. At the rear of the mobile you can see that this one is fitted with a carrier. This was one of only 3 extras being available. The other 2 are locking clamps for the rear boot and seat covers. All 3 accessories are actually fitted to this machine. Quite unusual for the mobile is the kickstarter seen from this angle. Most German scooters were called luxury models and they had electric starter. However, the mobile is one of the few exceptions. The boot is rather large, but on the right hand side it is of necessity because of the chain guard somewhat shallower. In the left hand side it was possible to carry 2 corker style helmets, and this all was necessary in 1950s because in fact you didn't even have to wear a helmet by law. The toolkit was adequate, being just a few spanners enabling you to carry out such tasks as wheel changing, spark plug changing, and even adjust the chain. The kickstarter was of the folding type, and once these small hatches were removed, you got access to the carburetor for cleaning, the air filter, and topping up the gearbox oil as well. From the right hand side you can do the points, have a look at the brushes, and indeed carry out other minor tasks. Gear change lever is on the left hand side and is normal motorcycle style, 1 down and 3 up. Also on this left hand side is the petrol tap. On, off and reserve. Marked of course in German. Auf, zu and reserve. Large speedometer situated on the right hand side of the dash also incorporates a little window that lets you know what gear you're in. Very handy for finding neutral. Towards the centre of the dash, at the top, we have the ignition switch. Just below it, the ignition warning light. And then finally, on the left hand side, the petrol tank top, because your petrol tank is actually in the front. Going to the handlebars now, it's fairly conventional in that left hand side lever is clutch. The switch on the left hand side is for the horn and dip switch. Moving across to the right hand side, we have the indicator switch, the choke control, which incidentally operates the opposite way. In this position is actually off, not on as you would expect. Also on the right hand side we find the throttle and the front brake. Moving down to the right hand side, there's a fairly large and very usable glove box. It's operated by a key. Clearly visible on this side is the main stand and also a side stand, but in reality the side stand is pretty near unusable because after